Alan Wake isn't your typical video game protagonist. He's not a superpowered hero with special abilities that enable him to leap tall buildings in a single bound, heal from any wound, or turn invisible. He's not an action hero mowing down hordes of bad guys with no remorse for the body count, having high-speed chases, or leaping from building to building with a grappling hook. He's not a hero from the fantasy age with a spell book full of powerful magic, a sword strapped to his back, or a gallant steed to ride around on. No, Alan Wake is not a hero. He's a writer. A normal person struggling with his personal demons like most of us do daily. Only Alan's demons have manifested themselves through an ancient evil known as the Dark Presence that wants him to write a story that will help it escape its prison and enter the real world. Armed with his trusty flashlight and whatever weapon he can get his hand on, Alan must do everything in his power to hold back the darkness. The original Alan Wake released over 10 years ago on the original Xbox 360, and it became one of my favorite games of all times due to the unique narrative and the different kind of way that the gameplay was presented. Then, last September, Remedy announced Alan Wake Remastered for current-gen systems, and that got me super excited to revisit this world once again. Before we get started, guys, as always, please hit the likes button. The like button always helps. Comment on the video. Let me know what you like or don't like about my channel so far. Subscribe if you are new. And if you are really enjoying my content, please think about sharing. So, does Alan Wake hold up after all this time? Or are some things best left in the past? Let's take a look and find out. You play as successful writer Alan Wake, who's come to this little idyllic town called Bright Falls to try and unwind and maybe overcome the recent writer's block that has affected him. The small town looks like just what the doctor ordered to help Alan unwind, except all is not as it seems in Bright Falls. An evil lurks within this anywhere American town, and it wants to use Alan to release it from its prison. The evil kidnaps Alan's wife, Alice, and uses her to get Alan to write the story to release it. But Alan finds a way to fight back. Now, one of my favorite things about Alan Wake is kind of how it was separated into episodes, much like a TV show. Now, this was before, way before Telltale Games kind of made episodic content the flavor of the month. And one thing I really liked was how on each episode started with a previously on Alan Wake type of thing that caught you up, kind of in case you stepped away from the game a little bit. On a side note, I really wish more games would adapt a kind of mechanic that's like this. Like if you step away from a game for a little while and you come back into it, it kind of recaps what you've done, where you've been, and what you got to do next. I think that would really help a lot of busy gamers, kind of like myself, parents, and just anyone who has a busy lifestyle who doesn't get a lot of opportunities to play. But when they do, you come back to it and you're kind of looking, it's kind of like that meme of Gandalf where it's like, step away from a game for a while and you're like, I have no memory of this place. So I really think that would be something really cool for today's gamer. Anyway, back to Alan Wake. The controls are still pretty decent and still kind of hold up. However, I do wish the devs would have went that extra mile and kind of given us the option to remap the buttons and what each thing does. I really feel in today's gaming landscape, that's got to be a given. The gameplay is still fun, but the narrative is really the star of the show here. Following along with Alan as he battles the darkness, trying to save his wife and stop that darkness once and for all, it's really amazing. And I've always felt that if Stephen King wrote for a video game, Alan Wake would have been that video game. The core gameplay loop revolves around battling the denizens of the darkness, members of the town that have succumbed to the darkness and are now trying to stop Alan in his quest. In order to battle the Taken, as they are called in the game, Alan must use this combo of a flashlight and gun. Using your flashlight, you must first weaken the Taken, destroying this shield of darkness that kind of surrounds them. Then you use your gun, you can kill them once and for all before they kill you. As I said earlier in this video, Alan is no action hero and he can be overwhelmed quite quickly. In these moments, being pursued by unrelenting darkness, finding a brightly lit area is like finding an island in a storm. It's like finding a brief sanctuary from the insanity chasing you. Now, Alan Wake does have some small environmental puzzles that are kind of scattered around its 11+ hour gameplay time, but nothing that's going to have you racking your brain too much. While battling the Taken can get repetitive at times, especially since there's not a whole lot of enemy variety in the game, you're constantly sucked back in by Alan Wake's amazing writing and voice acting. Matthew Porretta, I think I'm saying that right, Matthew Porretta is the perfect voice of Alan Wake, and he really captures that desperation yet determination that Alan exhibits throughout the game. Now, if you're a fan of my channel, and if you followed me at all, you know that I'm a big fan of full motion video games, FMV games, and Alan Wake does have some FMV sequences scattered throughout the game. At certain points throughout the game, Alan comes across TVs that show himself a real-life version of himself, hence the FMV scenes, that kind of show him in states of distress as he's trying to figure out a way to defeat the darkness. Now, these scenes are played out in live action sequences by, let me see if I can say his name right, Ikea Villa. I think it's how you say your name. I apologize if I'm brutalizing it. But these scenes are played out by Ikea Villa, who is also the character model for Alan Wake. Now, I personally really enjoyed the FMV sequences because they really are able to capture the desperation in Alan's face, more so than anything they were really able to do back then with the technology at the time. As for the remastered portion of the title of this game, while Alan Wake did look pretty good for its time when it originally released back in 2010 for the Xbox 360, the remastered version of the game looks really fantastic. Everything is more vibrant, colorful, and no place is there more evidence of how much work went into this remaster than in the character model faces. They look really good and truly capture the emotion on our protagonists and antagonists' faces. I went back and replayed the opening segment of the original game on my Series X, and you can see here just how great the game looks in this side-by-side comparison. Now, there were 2 bits of DLC for Alan Wake called The Signal and The Writer, and they are both here on the disc for the remastered version. Now, both bits of DLC kind of give us more of the same, but they do advance the Alan Wake story in a lot of meaningful ways, and they leave us open for a sequel that, incidentally, was just announced at the Game Awards. Now, on the other hand, there is Alan Wake American Nightmare. Take everything I said about Alan not being an action star, not being this superhero type character, and throw it out the window for this offshoot of the main game. Now, the game kind of plays out more like an episode of this fictional TV show that exists in the Alan Wake universe called Night Springs. It revolves around this character, Mr. Scratch, which is an opposite of Alan that is attempting to take over his life in the real world while Alan is sucked into the Bright Falls trying to battle the darkness. There is definitely more of a focus on action in this offshoot, with more guns and ammo than Alan could possibly use that can wipe out the Taken. Now, there is an interesting time loop mechanic in play here, and I will say the enemy designs are much more interesting in this offshoot than they were in the main game. Now, even the FMV sequences, the full motion video game sequences, are much more involved in Alan Wake American Nightmare, and I was really kind of into the story that they were crafting because of these FMV sequences. even if the voice acting wasn't on par with the original game. Now, there is a definitive conclusion to Alan Wake's American Nightmare, but since it's framed as an episode of Night Springs that Alan Wake himself apparently wrote, right? It's all in the lore, it's all there. Does it really count as anything more than that? Because it really doesn't. Alan Wake is a game that has stayed with me for many years, and with good reason. The story is just fantastically crafted, and to me, like I said earlier, it felt like it was written by the master of horror himself, Stephen King. That should be a huge compliment to Sam Lake and his team, as King is my absolute favorite writer of all time. While the core gameplay loop can get a bit repetitive after a while, I kept getting sucked back into the story. Even after 10 years, the game still has a way of holding my attention. I always wanted to come back to Alan Wake, and the remaster was the perfect reason to finally take that plunge. I always thought that Alan Wake would be the most perfect game to translate to a TV show, and I still stand by that sentiment. If you have never experienced Alan Wake, or if you have fond memories of the game on your Xbox 360, there is no better time to play this game, especially with the sequel on the horizons for 2023. Alright guys, that is it for today's video. Make sure you follow me on social media, both Facebook and Twitter. I'll put those links in the comment section below for more stuff that I can possibly put out here on the channel. So until next time, fellow geeks, I am GamerDad79. Keep on geeking on.